time for the Rider Dynasty podcast. Let's go! Welcome to the Rider Dynasty podcast with Ryan Bickerstaff, JJ Wenner, and your host, Michael Kloss.
And welcome to the Rider Dynasty podcast. If you can believe it already, we are on to week 5. I am Michael Kloss. Ryan and JJ are all here today. I'm in a good mood, guys. I am 8-0 in my Dynasty leagues. What's going on with you duders?
I am not sure what a duder is, but don't ever call me that again. Thank you.
Oh, hey, it's better than being called Jobin. Anyway, I'm excited to be back after I scored a 96.54 on my statistics exam. And, happy birthday, Michael.
Ryan, any stats professor would tell you that you didn't score 96. You answered 96% of the questions correctly. But unless there were 100 questions, that wasn't your score. So, however, I am 100% certain that I am wishing Michael a happy 34th birthday.
Nice,
Dude,
guys.
You don't look a day under 54.
Well, I said it's the bald hair, and you guys can't see through our hangout, but the massive gut as well. I need to take care of myself a little bit better, but it's okay. We're talking fantasy football. I'm happy, and guess who else we have with us? Certified athletic trainer Nick Mirabito. You can help whip me up in shape, right? And you got to tell me too. Seriously, what is going on with these injuries, man?
Yeah, glad to be back, fellas. First, a very happy birthday to our illustrious host, Michael Kloss.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, no, a lot of injuries this year. It feels like everyone on my team is injured, so that's great. But yeah, I just want to also, really quickly, just make the people aware out there. JJ and I did square off this week in a redraft league. And in case you're wondering who came out victorious in that matchup, I would not have brought it up if I lost. So I'm excited for a good episode, and let's do it.
A little back and forth. Never hurt anybody. JJ, do you have any rebuttal there?
I hope you die.
Wow. Death. Bring it.
No, that was harsh. I don't hope you die. You beat me. Juju
harsh.
Smith-Schuster let my team down.
Yeah, he is. He's struggling, and we'll get maybe a little bit to him here coming up. Again, if you like what you're hearing, and hopefully you do, maybe just minus the whole killing part, which we're just joking about. Episode 29 of the Rider Dynasty podcast. Please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Again, we're on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, you name it. Subscribe and like, you'll never miss an episode. But since Nick is here, it's that special time, Nick. It's that special time of the pod where we like to get to
Nicked Up with athletic trainer Nick Mirabito.
Mr. Mirabito. Chase Daniel replaced an injured Mitchell Trubisky and looked quite good coming off the bench. How long should we plan on Daniel starting for the Bears?
So Mitch Trubisky, it was officially ruled a dislocated shoulder along with a torn labrum in his non-throwing arm, which is important. It's really good when it comes to kind of return to play. It's also been reported that he won't require any type of surgery, also good. There was one source that said he'd be back, quote, sooner rather than later. And from the outside, yeah, I tend to agree with that. You know, it is his non-throwing shoulder. As long as there is no additional damage to the bony areas in the shoulder there or any additional soft tissue damage, you know, it's going to take maybe a couple of weeks, but, you know, they can always add some stability to that shoulder with some bracing. It is his non-throwing shoulder, so, you know, from a health perspective, long-term, Trubisky should be okay. It's more of the talent I think people might have a question mark about.
So let's just keep this rolling. I'm a little worried about Devontae Adams. He catches approximately 31 passes last week and then gets injured with a turf toe, as they say.
Yes, that is what they say, turf toe. I know it sounds like it's nothing, right? Turf toe and an injury to your toe, right? Can't be that bad. But it's really painful. I've heard athletes describe that it's really, really debilitating, and it's essentially like damage to a ligament that gives support to your big toe when you go to push off. And it's something that you need to be really, really careful with and managing because it can become nagging very quickly. Similar to, we talked about in the past, plantar fasciitis. That repetitive push-off tends to increase damage there. So it would shock me if he played this week, unless we do see some increased workload during practice throughout the week. But I would anticipate him to at least miss this week. There's always some structural support they can give, kind of inside the cleat. They could do taping or do some other stuff there that can maybe help him out, but ultimately this is going to be something that takes a little bit of time to heal. So I would say at least this week for Davante Adams.
Interesting.
All right, well, that's not good for a lot of fantasy teams. And after a tiresome week of having his nickname debated, what are we doing with Scary Terry McLaurin?
So this is actually kind of a perfect example of what I always talk about with watching those injury reports. So on Thursday, a hamstring injury kind of cropped up on the report there, and as I've said before, kind of my general rule of thumb is that if an injury like a hamstring strain or something like that shows up on a Thursday or Friday during the week, an injury that could be nagging, I typically will shy away from playing them unless it's someone that's, like an elite talent, a DeAndre Hopkins, a Travis Kelce, someone like that. So, as I say with all of these guys, because, we don't get to see the day-to-day with our eyes, the closest thing we get are those injury reports. You want to see some sort of progression throughout the week. So as far as a timetable, I would say it is a good thing that he was a game-time decision on Sunday. So I would say there is a chance that he plays this week. But again, you must keep an eye on those weekly injury reports.
Now, Nick, there were a lot of Jesus roofies this week. I'm testing that. I think that sounds better than concussions, right? Like
Jesus roofies? Is that
right?
what you said?
Like you just kind of get put to sleep? No? No, we're going to stick with concussions?
That's just a funny word combination.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
whatever.
Those two
I thought
things
it sounded
don't seem
pure
like
and
they
innocent.
go. Those two things
I
don't
just
seem like
thought
they
it
go
was
together.
a little bit
What about
euphemistic.
unicorn sparkles? Is that cool too? To Nate say it instead, or
No, that makes no sense. But anyway, so Nick, there were a lot of concussions this week. What's going on?
Wow, I'm still like
what was
still in
it
shock
again?
there for a
What-
second.
Jesus what?
Roofies?
Jesus roofies. I'm keeping that one. Okay, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Yeah, so concussions, right? I go to Temple and they're big in concussion research. So like if I ever said anything, I don't know. Regardless, right? So we have T.J. Hawkinson, Jarvis Landry, Josh Allen, and Jamal Williams. All went out with concussions. Last week, Jamal Williams was on Thursday, and anyone that's diagnosed with a concussion kind of goes through a graded return to play. So all concussions should be treated seriously, and just like for your guys' information, right? You know how I kind of cringe a little bit when people say sports hernia, and yes, I heard that last week. You guys say it at least 12 times on my commute. That was great. Well, the words mild concussion are even worse. That is like nails on a chalkboard to me, right? There's no such thing as a mild concussion. All concussions should be treated seriously. And the way that kind of return to play works is that you'll gradually increase your activity throughout the week. And you kind of move on to a next step. So let's say on one day, you do maybe a little bit of activity, and they see if you have any symptoms because of that activity. If you don't, you move on to the next step and the next and the next. If at any point symptoms come up, you revert back to the exercise that you did that did not provoke symptoms, and then you go from there. So for each of these guys, again, you need to see what their practice level is throughout the week. And if you see that they're not, in team drills by, let's say, about Friday, odds are they're not going to be playing. So the NFL concussion protocol is actually published, I believe, in the American Journal of Sports Medicine for anyone that is interested in the specifics. But that's kind of generally how it works.
All right, so Nick, why don't you go ahead and give us some quick hits on guys we need to look out for?
Yeah, so I kind of have a little list here. I'll go through them pretty quickly. So Damian Williams, still dealing with that knee contusion, obviously more severe than Andy Reid initially let on. Said he was going to practice a couple weeks ago. That didn't happen. So make sure we kind of keep an eye on his workload this week. Christian Kirk had an ankle injury right at the end of last game. Padding the stats clearly didn't work out for that one there. Cliff Kingsbury, and he's not really giving us any information, so I don't really have anything on him. Saquon has reported that he has shed his boot. I still expect him to miss at least 3 weeks. Of course, there's one person that can break science. It would be Saquon Barkley, but I would still expect him to miss some time. And then we have AJ Green. And look, I would be lying to you if I said I knew exactly what was going on here. JJ and I were talking about this a little before the pod. It's extremely frustrating. So, last week there were reports that he was running routes off to the side at practice, working out individually, and the next logical step is that you progress to team drills. And now there's reports that he's going to be missing at least the next 2 weeks. So I don't know if there was a setback. I'm not sure. Clearly, the Bengals are not interested in giving us specific updates. So at this point, who knows, honestly. So, we have to keep an eye on it and see. Once we start to see him in team drills, it should be a solid progression there, back to full play. And then last but not least, my favorite person to talk about is Cam Newton. Still dealing with a Liz Frank injury we saw last week. That is officially how they reported it. And here's the thing with that injury. So if you remember, it was initially reported as a mid-foot sprain. Well, those two terms, mid-foot sprain and Liz Frank injury, are essentially interchangeable terms. The Liz Frank is kind of a complex in your midfoot. And, I said a couple weeks ago that I was concerned about Cam, and I still am. That hasn't changed. But it does seem that Cam has more of a mild Liz Frank injury. I know when people maybe hear that term, they panic a little bit because maybe you think of the more severe injuries that require much more time. And he's not going to rush it back, right? If you saw that YouTube video, sitting there with that cigar and that cup of wine there, as we do with all of our podcasts, right? I wish. We could. From now on, let's do that, guys.
I'm not stopping you. I promise.
Let's do it. But yeah, so expect him to miss a couple weeks. Take time. He's not going to come back until he is fully healthy. But when he comes back, I would expect to maybe make a little bit of an impact later on in the season.
Nick, that was, I would say, by far the best understanding of just a concussion. That kind of helped me just really kind of get into the nitty-gritty of how people can understand and how that protocol is going. Because I feel like we only hear, they're in the protocol, or like what they're going through. So I think that was really insightful. So thank you very much. Can you tell the people where they can reach you on Twitter if they have any questions?
Yes, they can. They can reach me at Mirabito_ATC. That's MIRABITO_ATC.
Well, thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure having you on, and we'll definitely look forward to getting to you next week.
Always a pleasure, man. Hopefully less injuries going forward.
I'll say. And that was...
Nicked Up! With athletic trainer Nick Mirabito.
So now let's keep moving on as we thank Nick and get into the news desk. So let's start off with just talking about Vontaze Burfict and the hit on Jack Doyle. It looked nasty. He is suspended for the rest of the season. Ryan, what's your take? Was it warranted? What are you thinking?
Bye, Felicia. He's a repeat offender. He hasn't learned from his past mistakes and suspensions, clearly. And the worst part is he smiled as he ran off the field after he got ejected. Part of me believes that hit was intentional, the way he did that. He could have led with the shoulder. He could have stood up straighter and just ran right through Doyle. But instead, he led with the helmet. And
he lined him up for sure, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He turned himself into a missile. It was crazy. And the NFL wants to prevent head injuries, and they want to see hits like that like taken out of the game completely. And
Egregious hits like that, yeah.
Yeah, and one way to do it is to, well, remove the frequent offenders like Vontez Burfict. And again, he like laughed, he smiled about the hit. He knew what he did. And yeah, I mean, the NFL is right to suspend him for the year, and if they were smart, they'd ban him for life. And well, you know, enjoy your XFL career, Vontez Burfict, because that's where you're going to end up next.
Now, I really don't try to be a contrarian on all of these topics. I really do. But I don't think this particular hit deserved this punishment. I mean, I love Doyle. You know how much I love Doyle.
Whole lot.
I roll with Doyle. My one and only foray into start sits, I recommended starting Doyle. That's how much I love him. But Doyle was trying to get up and advance the ball. It was a football play. Yeah, Burfict lowered his helmet. But it was a low target. You know, I think he should get it maybe fined, maybe a game suspension. But I mean, I think Derek Barnett's hit on Jamal Williams was much more egregious than this. And I think they're showing it in very, very like slow motion. And they keep showing that one picture where it looks like Doyle's just kneeling on the ground and Burfict is just running up and hitting him. But I mean, watching it live, I don't think it's as egregious as all that.
Yeah, you mentioned that that hit on Jamal Williams too. That's kind of worth mentioning. I know that he got released from the hospital. He rejoined the team. I don't know if they have a timetable set on his return whatsoever. But I mean, Ryan, you know, kind of said the NFL's trying to eliminate that type of hit, and when you know they're gonna get into a lot of the nasty slow motion. You can already tell that they've started with the pass interference flags of now they're gonna get into like looking at everything frame by frame. It's always gonna look worse, at least in my opinion, when you slow it down. So it's just interesting to see how they continue to move forward. Especially, it stinks for Burfict because he's a repeat offender, so he's always gonna get that call. Let's stay with defense. JJ, I know you're loving this as our IDP guru here. Guru, not guru. Maybe that's like a Mortal Kombat fighter or something. Is that Goro? Yeah, there. I knew you'd know, Ryan. Thank you for getting my back. Bradley Chubb is out for the season. JJ, what's going on, and what's the impact of that loss on Denver's defense?
Man, I don't know if you saw any of the reports, but supposedly there was a huge screaming match after Better Homes and Gardner's game-winning drive against them this week. It kind of broke their spirit. I mean, I'm not expecting much from the Broncos and Joe Flacco this season, but it really sucks to lose a great defensive talent like Chubb. He was just a lot of fun to watch. It doesn't hurt as bad, I guess, because the Broncos aren't going anywhere. But, I love to see players healthy and playing. So this sucks.
Yeah, JJ, I agree. It does suck. This is a massive blow for a defense whose pass rush at least has failed to get going this year. There are a lot of high hopes between Von Miller and Bradley Chubb that they're going to put up big numbers. But yeah, this is already a lost season for the Broncos.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, they're gonna have a really high draft pick. They're gonna get some exciting new players. They're gonna have a new quarterback under center next season. So yeah, I think 2020 is gonna be a better year for Denver. It's a drag for Chubb in the present, but he'll come back just as good as ever. He's young. He'll rebound. So. Yeah.
So really quickly, I want to go over Denver's schedule, and I just want you both really quickly just shout it out whether you think their matchup is going to be a win or a loss. You're saying win or loss for the Broncos, okay? Right. Next week against the Chargers.
Loss.
Hosting the Titans after that.
Hosting, win.
Loss.
Hosting the Chiefs.
Loss.
At the Colts.
Win.
I'll give him a W there.
Hosting the Browns.
Hosting. Win.
Loss.
At the Vikings.
Loss.
Loss.
At the Bills.
Loss.
Hosting Chargers. Sorry, Ryan jumped the gun there. Hosting Chargers.
Loss. Yeah, I'm lost at this point personally.
No,
Loss.
So then the last four are the Texans, Chiefs, Lions, and Raiders. Do they win any games there?
Yeah, I mean the Lions are horrible. I'm just kidding, Ryan.
Yeah, but they might beat the Raiders out of that group.
Yeah, or who knows? Who knows how these teams, based on the injuries so far? I mean, the Lions might have to roll out. I don't even know who's free. Who's their backup at every position? They'll bring back Theo Riddick on one leg and throw the ball from who's behind Stafford?
Josh Johnson.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, not good. Let's hit the last piece of news if you don't mind, and you can look it up if you want. Also, John Ross injured on the Monday night game. Supposedly, according to Mike Garofalo, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. My apologies, but looks like could miss up to a month. So. Possibly maybe look at Auden Tate or nobody on the Cincinnati offense.
And Christian Kirk injury might be a little bit worse than we thought. They signed, I know, Pharaoh Cooper, who was their kick returner before, to take some of Kirk's duties, but he might be out for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So, yay.
Yeah, well, let's move on to our next segment, King of Transitions here. We like to call this, and we've played it before, it's called Change My Mind. So I'm going to give my opinion on a couple of NFL storylines, just opinions, and Ryan and JJ are going to do their best to change my mind with stats and evidence, because as we all know, I can get a little crazy, I can get a little emotional, and I start spewing, and these guys need to calm me back down. Now, if they can't change my mind, I'm going to chastise you and just maybe call you some names here, but believe me, I want you to change my mind, okay? So let's see what you got. Here we go. My first storyline opinion that I want you to change my mind is when Ben Roethlisberger went down, I instantly became afraid for all Steelers, okay? And remember, we're talking Dynasty here. It's a Dynasty pod. I lost all confidence in Juju Smith-Schuster. He's had no 100-yard games in 4 contests. Mason Rudolph seems like he's the next Alex Smith with all these checkdowns and passes into the running back. Now, Juju's young. He's 22 years old. In Dynasty communities, he's everything that everyone wants out of a wide receiver. A stud in the making and super young, but I'm trading him right now before he can do more damage to my team. I keep throwing him out there. He's not doing anything. If I can get similar value, I'm trading him. Change my mind.
You know, I'm not sure I can change your mind, Michael, because I'm kind of right there with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I really tried actually to find some way to spin this in Juju's favor, but he's the number 39 receiver in PPR right now. And that's lower than guys like John Brown, Demarcus Robinson, Philip Dorsett, and Cole Beasley. Like, this is just bad. And there are no signs that he's suddenly going to return to last year's form or anything close to it. Juju, he was a first or second round pick in many dynasty leagues,
right? And
like a second or third rounder in redraft leagues. So, those first few selections are incredibly difficult to bench given the draft capital spent on them. And when they aren't hits, the whole team suffers. So yeah, Juju is doing a lot of damage to teams right now. Sometimes the best solution is simply to make a trade, but in Dynasty, it's too soon to trade him in Dynasty. In redraft, get what you can for him, but I mean, in Dynasty, like he's a 22-year-old stud who just lost his future Hall of Fame quarterback. Hold on to him a little longer, give him some time, but yeah, and if you're gonna trade him, I don't fault you for it.
Well, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind on the Steelers right now. Rudolph is clearly not Roethlisberger. We're going to have to see if Juju can get open on normal routes or if he was just a result of Roethlisberger improvisation. Much like Antonio Brown was able to get open as Big Ben would extend plays like only Big Ben can do. But, I mean, in Dynasty, I drafted a bunch of Juju. I can't bench him, and I'm definitely not trading him for pennies on the dollar. So I think you're kind of stuck with him if you drafted him.
It's tough also thinking about what the rest of Roethlisberger's career is actually going to be. Like, I mean, I don't personally think he's going to hang it up after this season. I know that there has, been some speculation about that, but that could easily turn it around. I just don't want to wait, and see if this is a crown jewel of Dynasty, or if I could shift gears to maybe even another wide receiver like a Tyreek Hill, like maybe even Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen or something like that, just switch my fortunes up with that.
Hey, Keenan Allen's the number one receiver in fantasy right now. Fun fact.
And I still think people would trade him for Juju and the opportunity there. I mean, how long do wide receivers play in today's NFL? Like, I'm not saying everyone's going to be Larry Fitzgerald over here, but you're looking into elite level talent with Julio Jones, and he's 33 still, and we're thinking that he's going to have at least another 2 or 3 elite years, correct? So will Juju follow that same path? That's why it's an incredibly hard decision. Let's go to opinion 2 to change my mind. Before the season started, the 3 of us collectively had Chris Godwin as a consensus 19th ranked wide receiver in Dynasty overall. In half-point leagues, he's the wide receiver number 2. And, of course, just to clarify, we're not saying he's a wide receiver 2, as in the top 24. He is the 2nd overall wide receiver, thanks to a huge game in Week 4, a $172, 2 touchdowns. I think he's going to finish the year as a top 5 wide receiver. Change my mind.
Yeah, there's no chance this happens. If you said top 20, if you said a wide receiver 1, meaning like top 16, top 12, but top 5, no thank you. It just came out that Evans has been battling stomach illnesses, or a stomach illness in the first 2 games, which is why he had such low production. But I'm still betting on him being the Bucs wide receiver 1 this season. He's a much better wide receiver than Godwin. Maybe not much better, but he is a better wide receiver. And there is absolutely zero chance that the Bucs are going to have 2 top 5 receivers. So, sorry, man, you're off on this one.
Yeah, it's entirely possible this happens just the way Godwin's playing, but Mike Evans is still there, and he's still a better receiver with a higher ceiling. He's only a week removed from 190 yards and 3 touchdowns on 8 receptions. So Evans isn't that far behind Godwin either, as he's the number 4 receiver in half and full point PPR formats. But yeah, the team itself isn't that good, and Jameis Winston isn't consistently good enough to support 2 top 5 fantasy receivers. And then keep in mind, there's still the sleeping giant that is O.J. Howard, who has yet to come out of his slumber.
Get out of here with that.
But it has to happen eventually, right?
Oh, my word.
Maybe.
Sorry, I was dazing off a little bit there. Did he just say what I think he said?
But, moving along, Evans is going to come out on top between him and Godwin, and he'll finish as a top 5 receiver. And Godwin, he'll finish in the top 12, so that will put him exceeding all of our expectations for him preseason, but there's no way Tampa's going to have 2 top 5 receivers.
Well, again, I was going to be like Kanye and let you finish with that, Ryan. But JJ, what did you think that he said? Is it not repeatable?
The sleeping giant about O.J. Howard?
He was.
Sleeping giant. I mean, maybe because he's big, but
Well, yeah,
not like a fantasy football giant.
he could be.
I think
He could. So could I.
struggling.
I mean, well, he has a better chance than me, but I mean, come
I
on,
don't know, JJ. You
he's
got a
talented
fast
enough.
40 time.
I have good hands. I can catch.
All right.
Go ahead.
I know. I will say, I think you guys both presented a pretty good case. Top 12 at least seems reasonable. You changed my mind for that one. So, one of two so far. Unless, Ryan, did you have anything else to add? It can be about O.J. Howard if you want.
No, I think O.J. Howard's better than the way they're utilizing him in Tampa right now. I think he should request a trade.
Well, we still have a believer. JJ and I are not on that side, but that means, Ryan, you just have a lot more ammo to shove in our face if you're right. So, opinion 3. If you look at the highest scoring fantasy players right now, you'll see some familiar names, right? Mahomes is there again. Lamar Jackson's a little bit new. Christian McCaffrey's there. And here at number 7 overall, you're looking at the Patriots defense. The New England defense is essentially an RB1 here. They've got upcoming games against the Redskins, Giants, and Jets. You love it, JJ. If I'm making a title run, which, let's be honest, guys, I'm always making a title run in Dynasty here, I'm trading a wide receiver 3 or a 2020 coveted pick for this defense to win now. Change my mind.
Michael.
What?
All right. So normally I would advise against this, but if a defense is playing that well and their next 3 games are the Redskins, Giants, and Jets, and they also get to play the Dolphins and Bills one more time, along with another cake matchup against the Bengals late in the season, it actually seems like a pretty good idea. And keep in mind too that the Bengals and Bills games are during the fantasy playoffs.
Like that?
But also keep in mind that after this cake 3-game stretch coming up, they enter the Crucible and they have matches against the Browns and the Ravens. They head into a bye week before going into the Eagles, Cowboys, Texans, and Chiefs. So no, they're not going to finish anywhere near the status of the RB1 you compared them to. But if all you're looking to give up is a wide receiver 3 or what I'm assuming is a 2020 third round pick, I'm not going to try too hard to talk you out of this. I wouldn't make this move personally, but if you think it's going to help you win a championship, go for it.
No, absolutely not.
That's the fervor I was looking for.
Even though it is your birthday, Michael, if I was in Colorado with you right now, I would slap you for even uttering such nonsense. Remember, it isn't about how many points they score, right? It's about how replaceable they are. The last 3 games, they faced Luke Falk. I mean, this season they faced Luke Falk, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Josh Allen. We're not talking about a murderer's row of QBs. But all of that is besides the point. Why are you playing in a league with team defense?
I'm not
man.
the commissioner. I'm not the commissioner here.
Yeah, you could quit. Come to a big-time league where we play IDP like big boys. We put on our big boy pants. And we draft real defensive players. What is wrong with you?
I feel
you
like
should feel shame.
just got
shame.
scolded.
Shame.
Ring the bell.
Your
shame.
mind is changed. You are ashamed. And we're moving on to opinion number 4.
Yes, sir. Okay. Well, my goodness.
Flashbacks to boot camp there, JJ. Damn.
I was gonna say, like, I just feel just like just naked and afraid here. Oh goodness, you just undressed me here, and not in a good way. So let's go with opinion number 4. By the way, I'll give you changed my mind. Thank you. See, I want more animated JJ. That's what I crave here. All right, opinion 4. Kirk Cousins, okay? It's an understatement to say that he's not been good this year. But with Kevin Stefanski's run-first offense, has he really needed to be, right? The Vikings have something crazy like $230 million locked up in Diggs, Cousins, and Thielen. And I'm sure that they will lean on these players the rest of the season. So please change my mind, because we talked about this earlier in the season about our confidence in Vikings wide receivers. Change my mind. I'm going to say those two starting wide receivers will still be in the wide receiver 2 range by season's end.
In today's NFL, you can't win consistently with the scheme the Vikings are running right now. Like this whole just let Dalvin Cook rush for 150 yards per game and win it for us is totally unsustainable. And eventually the passing game will have to become a factor, but it's an uphill battle. As talented as these two receivers are, Thielen is the number 38 receiver in PPR and Diggs is 56th. Chris Godwin had more fantasy points last week alone against the Rams than Diggs had all season so far. And this isn't just a symptom of Minnesota being run first. Like, their entire offense is wrong. And there's something seriously off about the passing game, and I don't know how to fix it. So maybe one of them will end up as a wide receiver too, but I can't see both.
Which one?
Thielen. He seems to have better chemistry with Cousins.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but Ryan is right about their offense. The change in offense is limiting their opportunities. Except for Cook's rushing, nobody on the Vikings is doing well in this offense. If you look at Diggs and Thielen's air yards per target, they are both higher than their career averages. Right? So it's sort of counterintuitive. Like, they're getting the ball targets deeper. Why aren't they performing more? But both of them are good with the ball in their hand and making that first person miss. So they're being completely misutilized. I don't know. I don't think that is proper English as an English teacher.
Underutilized?
No, because they're being utilized, just not properly. But even like on RotoViz, they have a great stat called FPOE, which is fantasy points over expectation. They are both outperforming where they should be right now. So it's not like they're playing badly. It's that they're not getting the opportunities they need to be successful. This offense needs to change, and I do not believe it is a talent issue right now.
So let's see. So Ryan, you say one, not both, and you're saying Thielen. JJ, just not performing whatsoever. I mean, again, I think the only thing that we have to look at is what they've been doing in 4 weeks. They can change, but you're making me nervous. So I'm going to go with 3 for 4. You changed my mind. You calmed me down. You cooled me off. All right. I'm ready to go forward with week 5. Thank you.
All right. Well, now is the part of the show where Ryan and Michael play the role of Sarnak the Great and try to prognosticate start and sits for each position group. As they are going to do the hard work, I am just going to sit back and make fun of them. Pure mocking every bit of advice they give. Only because I'm an angry dude, and this sort of makes me happy. So, yeah, remember not to start any Detroit Lions this week as they're on a bye, or Miami Dolphins, as they actually, surprisingly, have taken this season off. So I don't even think they're playing this year. But as a general rule, somebody wrote that, never start any Miami Dolphins. Yeah, don't start a Dolphin.
Did you just drop a Johnny Carson reference on us?
Yes, Sarnak the Great. I did. I try to get the young listeners in, so there's nothing like a Better Home and Gardeners magazine reference. And
I mean, I'm just impressed that I actually picked it up. No one else is going to get that, but
thank you.
Kudos to
you. You complete me.
Yes.
All right, Michael.
You changed my mind.
Who are you starting at QB this week?
All right, I'm just going to be quick with this. Tom Brady going to blow out Washington. That's my pick, TB12.
Really?
Yeah,
All right.
really.
After last week?
After last week, I'm not worried.
Okay, very good. Ryan, go ahead.
JJ, it seems like whatever quarterback I say to start has a terrible game, and the one I say to sit finishes as the best quarterback for the week. So screw it. I'm throwing caution to the wind here, and it's time for some Minshew magic. Yes, against the same Panthers defense that just shut down Deshaun Watson last week. Why, you ask? Because if I do something completely irrational and stupid, maybe, just maybe, it will actually work out. Unlike, sitting Jameis King Crab Winston against a Rams defense that had made life hell for quarterbacks that faced them, for the first 3 weeks of the season. Who knew? Fantasy football's a joke. Let's move on.
You got to have a little bit more confidence than that.
It is. And, as I said to Michael in a conversation, you made the right call. I mean, anybody who started Winston was insane. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just didn't work out, but whatever. But nice bandwagon jumping on the Minshew magic. I still like Better Home and Gardner better. Michael, who are you sitting?
Again, we're trying not to be super obvious here, and this is why I'm going to sit Aaron Rodgers this week. Devontae Adams is struggling, so that means that it's going to be all Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Geronimo Allison, and Jake Kumaro or
I think
someone
Kumaro's
else.
hurt, isn't he?
Yeah, maybe. Then I can't recall who the number 3 wide receiver is. I don't have a depth chart up. Jamal Williams is out. It seems like they're gonna go big on Aaron Jones unless Dexter Williams comes into play. Was a former Notre Dame running back, and then Jimmy Graham could be an outlet. I'll get to him in a second, but Dallas has had some success against the QB, so. I know that they just faced off on Teddy Bridgewater and seen the likes, but I'm gonna make the play and sit Aaron Rodgers and find a. I'm not sitting Aaron Rodgers for Andy Dalton after this, though the Cardinals are giving up a ton of yards. But I'm just gonna say sit Aaron Rodgers this week unless you have another bona fide starter.
All right, you don't have to go give any half measures. We're sitting Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, yeah.
Ryan, who do you got? Who are you sitting?
Mitchell Trubisky. I'm kidding, of course. But I feel like I pretty much have to sit an injured quarterback for one of these damn things to work out in my favor. So I'm going to go with the quarterback on the other side of this matchup, which is Derek Carr against the Chicago Bears. This has to be a safe pick, right? Right?
I think so.
Right. It should be. Except you're making it, which means
he's going to throw 450 yards and 6 touchdowns, and it's going to be just glorious. But it's the Bears. They're pretty mean to opposing quarterbacks. So, yeah, Derek Carr, sit him. Michael, who do you got for us at running back?
All right, so I am going to start Derrick Henry. My dislike for Henry has been well documented, though. Nick, I think, likes him even less. I would say against the Bills, this just screams the run game to me. I don't think that, he's going to be a top 10 back, and I don't want to sit here and tell you to start one of those top 10 backs either. I think that if you have Derrick Henry, you're starting him anyways. It's not a particularly juicy matchups, but when the Titans do lean on Henry, especially with the Bills' pass defense, I like what I see, and I don't think Mariota can sustain what he did last week. So just go ahead and fire up Derrick Henry.
Yeah, don't overlook the Bills' defense in general. They have the 7th best rushing defense this year. They're really stingy. I'm impressed by how they're playing this year, and I'm generally not a big Bills fan, but yeah, I don't know about Derrick Henry. But Ryan, who do you got to start?
Be sure to fire up the other former Heisman-winning Alabama running back this weekend, which is Mark Ingram against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, they're susceptible to the run, and Baltimore happens to be very good at running the ball with Ingram.
Well, Ryan, I agree with you. Dear God, I agree with you.
and that's the podcast, folks. We're done.
Wow.
We're never
That's
coming
twice.
back.
Twice in one pod. Twice in one pod. I believe that's in the Book of Revelations as one of the signs of the apocalypse. Michael, who are you sitting this week at running back?
Okay, I'm going to sit Chris Thompson. He's a pass catching back, which is an opportunity for points. Maybe change your mind a little bit if you're in a PPR. But everybody knows that Bill Belichick takes away the best player. And, like, seriously, look at the Redskins with Terry McLaurin out. Is Chris Thompson their best player? I mean, seriously, guys, enlighten me. Who else is a better player on the Washington Redskins other than Chris Thompson?
Think of one.
No one. No one is better than Chris Thompson.
On that team.
mean, now, I'm not talking about offensive linemen or anything like that, but I looked at the roster, and as far as fantasy starters on both offense and IDP, after McLaurin, this team is
bad. Yeah.
I think calling it a dumpster fire is an insult to both dumpsters and fire.
Yeah.
So, Ryan, who are you sitting this week?
There you go.
I'm sitting Wayne Gallman against the Minnesota Vikings. Gallman, he was great last week against the college team that is the Washington Redskins, but he draws a much tougher matchup this week against the Vikings defense that has been stingy against running backs in 3 of 4 games so far. And even last week, while getting beat by a Chase Daniel-led Bears team, the Vikings made it a point to shut down Chicago's run game. So they're going to come out angry this week, looking to snap this Giants team back to reality. You know, this Giants team suddenly starting to feel a little bit confident with Danny Dimes and get a couple of wins under their belt. I think Minnesota's going to sock it to them.
Well, now to the position that has made me regret my 0 running back strategy this year. Michael, who are you starting at wide receiver?
I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp, even against Seattle. Over 100 yards in 3 straight games. He's got Goff's trust. He's on pace for 184 targets this year, and he does a lot with the football. So give me those targets. Give me Cooper Kupp to keep it rolling on Thursday night.
Yeah, I thought for sure Cooper Kupp was going to start off slow coming back from injury, but
I did too.
Not the case, man. He looks good out there.
Nick said that he looked surgically repaired, cutting fine, and I'm sad I only have him on one Dynasty team.
Yeah, and I was trying to trade him for a first-round pick, and the guy wouldn't take him. And
wow.
Yay for me. Woohoo! So, Ryan, who do you got?
All right, so what's a little Minshew magic without a Chark attack?
Oh, Jesus. Go on.
You did your homework.
Yeah, I did my homework. DJ Chark is the number 10 receiver in PPR currently, and he's Gardner Minshew's favorite target. He had a touchdown called back against the Broncos last week. So, that would have been, a score in every game so far this season. But he's going to score again this week against the Panthers, and it will stand this time. We're going to need a bigger boat.
Come on. First of all, you're going to need a bigger bandwagon. I mean, literally all your start and sits are you just like hitching up to somebody else's wagon. Come on, man. Pick the Detroit Lions.
He's going to need a bigger boat drinks. How about that?
Can we edit that out?
No.
That was horrible.
No, I'm
horrible.
keeping it. I'm keeping it. You're the one who picked it. That's your thing.
Exactly. All right. So who are we sitting at wide receiver?
I'll start it off if you don't mind. I'm going to sit Tyrell Williams. I realize he's had 4 straight games with a touchdown, but this is more of that judgment on Derek Carr. I realize there's really not much on that team other than Williams and Darren Waller. But the Bears are doing pretty good against receivers. They struggled with Emmanuel Sanders late in the Broncos game, but Tyrell really hasn't been blowing up the world with targets lately. So let's go ahead and sit Tyrell Williams.
Yeah, I don't see anything good happening in Oakland this weekend, except if someone is wearing a sweet LA Raiders starter jacket, which is another old school reference. I loved starter jackets, man. I wanted one, but we couldn't afford it. Anyway, Ryan, who are you sitting this week?
I'm sitting Juju Smith-Schuster against the Baltimore Ravens. We already talked earlier about losing confidence in Juju. He has another rough matchup this week, a date with Marlon Humphrey and the Ravens. Humphrey, he's quickly becoming one of the game's top cornerbacks, and he just locked down OBJ. So this isn't the week for Juju to get back on track. Sorry.
Yeah, it was amazing how he really put a stranglehold on OBJ in that game. He really choked off his opportunities.
There was some article earlier today or yesterday that somebody was like, "Oh yeah, I think it was it actually the Ravens that were like, "Oh yeah, he didn't do anything," and Kitchens was like, "Are you serious? Like, look at that video. He like choke slam that dude."
Is he even going to play in this game?
OBJ?
Yeah,
I mean, no,
I did-
Humphrey. How can he not be suspended for choking another player?
I did a little bit of research on that before I wrote about Humphrey in there, and it looks like he's all systems go.
That's nuts. All right, tight end start sits. Who are we going with, Michael?
Okay, I sat Aaron Rodgers, right? So
You
then
did.
it makes perfect sense that I would start Jimmy Graham.
Ooh, love Jimmy Graham.
With no, Adams, like I said, Rodgers, who was, a bench here. I think he's still going to be able to move the ball a little bit, and I think the trust will go maybe to the wide receivers between the 20s, and then Jimmy Graham will get some red zone targets.
Love to hear it. Ryan, who we got?
So who do the Cardinals play this weekend? Oh, it's the Bengals.
And it works,
That's gonna
too.
that's gonna be an ugly game. But if you need a tight end this week, why not take a flyer on Tyler Eifert? Arizona is this year's go-to team to start a tight end against, having allowed an average of 23.6 points to starting tight ends through 4 games. The worst performance of which was the 18.7 points to Will Disley last week.
Now, Ryan, I'm not mad that you're jumping on the Eifert bandwagon this week like everybody else.
Does every pick have to be a bandwagon?
I'm just nervous that you jumping on Eifert might shatter his ankle and knock him out of the game. So, yeah, no, I think Eifert's a great pick, as long as he doesn't break. Who are we sitting this week?
All right, so you're scouring your waiver wire. You don't really have a great tight end. You look, you see Jared Cook, a familiar name on the waiver wire. Or
I like Jared Cook.
you pick him up, you're like, I'm going to play him. No,
Woohoo!
you don't play
No.
Jared Cook. Teddy Bridgewater cannot get the ball to him. Stay out of the fantasy lineup, Jared Cook. 18 targets in 4 games. Blah.
I don't even know what to say to you. All right, Ryan, go ahead.
I'm just reminding fantasy football players, managers out there not to start Gerald Everett this week against the Seattle Seahawks. He had a nice game last week against the Buccaneers, but tight ends are not heavily involved in LA's passing game, and it seems like more of a fluke that Everett finished as the tight end 6 last week. More so than it looks like he's going to go on a run here. So just a reminder, don't start Gerald Everett.
Careful going out onto that limb, Ryan. I know we were all about to fire up our Chris Everett shares this week.
If you call me Chris Everett one more time,
Who was that? Who?
Jim Rome.
Oh, that's right.
It's like that was one of the best
To Jim Everett, right? That was Jim
to
Everett.
Jim Everett, right? Yeah, that was one of the best E-Bombs World videos. When the internet was just kind of starting to
Yep.
figure out its meme culture, and Jim Rome or somebody posted that, and it was a show on ESPN2, and Jim Everett just jumped up and just knocked over the chair, choked out Jim Rome, and walked off set.
Yeah,
What
they
an
fell off the
moment.
platform. That was awesome. That
Oh,
was
man.
awesome.
Yeah, you'll
Good times.
remember that for a long time.
Well, gentlemen, I'm exhausted right now from all the snark and the making fun of your picks. I congratulate you because you guys make the picks, but I am tired from just making fun of them. So, great job, guys.
Well, then that's going to do it for us then. We'll say goodbye. Remember, hit us up at Rider Dynasty on Twitter. Our website is riderdynasty.com. You'll hear that a little bit in the outro. Again, hit us up wherever you listen to podcasts. Like, subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends. We want to get more out there. We want to continue to keep the conversation going. So we look forward to next week, and have a good night.
Catch you in the next one.
Boat drinks.
Thank you for listening to the Rider Dynasty podcast. If you have enjoyed the pod, please subscribe and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Follow the guys on Twitter at Ride or Dynasty. You can follow JJ at JJ Wenner. Ryan is at BixPixFFB. And Michael is at Michael S. Kloss. Check out our website, rideordynasty.com. And remember, we have your back.
Your reputation far exceeds your skills, Mammy.